But for more on what happens next for Chelsea, we're joined now by Matt Law from the Telegraph. Matt, first things first, who's making these decisions? The decision to sack Potter, the decision on the new manager?
Yeah, it was the co-sporting directors, Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley. They recommended the decision to sack him after the Villa game. And Bowley and Badadek Barley, the co-controlling owner, they've put them in charge of the process in terms of identifying a shortlist, starting off the interviews, and I think the owners will come into it later on in the process, but it's very much being led by the sporting directors this time.
Chelsea have been really keen to point out that this was a long-term appointment, that this was part of a much longer vision for Chelsea. Does the sacking of Graham Potter contradict that, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say it does contradict it, especially when they lost here at home to Southampton. There was a lot of disquiet amongst the fans, a lot of speculation, and they were very forthright about the fact they were going to continue to back him. And then sort of 6 weeks on or whatever it is, they've ended up sacking him, so it definitely contradicts it, yeah.
Matt, you just mentioned that the sporting directors are probably more involved than Todd Bowley in terms of making this decision, but one of the sporting directors, Winstanley, came with Graham Potter from Brighton. I mean, he's obviously part of his team. How does that work? How's that relationship now work? He's obviously going to stay at the club. Graham Potter's going to move on. How's that come about?
Yeah, I mean, that is quite surprising that Paul Winstanley was among the decision to actually recommend him to go before the end of the season, because again, talking about the contradictions, there was briefings around after the Southampton game that one of the supportive things for Potter was the fact that Winstanley had been brought in and had that relationship with him. Obviously, they sort of work as a pair, him and Lawrence Stewart, and obviously decided the time was up.
What are they looking for then from a new manager, given that they've tried this young English manager who's used to working with young players and developing players, and this time that hasn't worked out? What do they want from the next manager?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to just throw out all of their principles. So I still think they want... We hear this word collaboration at Chelsea all the time now. It was in the statement when Graham left even, and they're still going to be looking for someone who they feel will collaborate. They want someone who can work with young players, but I do think that this time they will put an emphasis on somebody who's got experience in a big club, somebody who's probably got experience in Europe. I don't see them going for a sort of another Graham Potter type, so it might rule a few out who have been linked. I think more likely they go to someone with a bit more pedigree this time.
Yeah, who are the names then that are being linked with the job? I noticed you've been reporting on a couple that you feel that there's been contact with.
Yeah, there's been contact with Julian Nagelsmann. He's quite interesting because one of the sporting directors, Lawrence Stewart, has worked with him before in the Red Bull Group. Also, Christopher Vivell, the technical director, has worked with him at RB Leipzig. They've made contact with Luis Enrique as well, who was obviously at Spain until got sacked after the World Cup. And then there's other people who they're going to talk to. Pochettino's one who you'd expect them to talk to as well.
Matt, we're talking about Todd Bowley. We spoke about it a lot on Monday Night Football. And what they've gone through in these first sort of 8 to 9 months in his tenure, are they looking at themselves in any way in terms of, like, we haven't quite got this right in terms of all the players that they've brought in, the changes that they've made, or do they think, no, we know the model, we just need the right man in charge?
I think there's an acknowledgement in the fact that they're making it very clear that they're trying to let the sport directors lead at this time. If you remember when they brought Potter in, they didn't have any recruitment team. Marina Granovskaya had left, Petr Cech had left, and they didn't actually have anyone. Bowley was acting sporting director, and they were doing it themselves. This time they are trying to leave it more to the football people to make their recommendations and then almost choose from their recommendations. So I think that is a recognition that some mistakes have been made. I mean, they can't fail to see that, quite frankly. So yeah, I do think it'll be a slightly different process this time.
Do we have an idea on timescale?
No, they have no idea on timescale. I mean, there's Real Madrid next week. I'm sure if they could, they would love to get someone in, but that might not be realistic. I think there's also a recognition that last time they did Potter very quickly, and they only interviewed 2 candidates, him and Pochettino. I think they want to do a bit of a more thorough process this time. So they're very keen to go through the process rather than put the time on it.